Patrol, ladies and gentlemen. Doom Patrol episode 2. Big Butt Booty Patrol. Butt Patrol. They should have called this one Soul Searching Patrol because everybody was going through it emotionally. And it's your boy Icon with a DC TV review for you, and we're going over that Doom Patrol. And oh my God, I'm loving this show so far. It is like ridiculously crazy. So this particular episode starts where we're back from the future and everybody, they're like shook up over what happened. You know, like the horrors that they saw in the future and them dying and the zombie butt apocalypse and all this other foolishness. So now Rita, she called the team together and the whole team was together. So Rita was just like, oh, I've come up with a plan so we can save the world from the zombie butt apocalypse. And then she said, we just have to do the opposite of everything we were gonna do before. And then, she was just like, oh, I used to wear high heels and now I'm wearing flats. And, then at that point, that's when Cyborg was like, look, I've had enough. Because he said that if we really try to save the world, if we're really trying to do good, and if we're really trying to make a difference in the world and save the world, and if you're telling us, Rita, that we need to do things differently and do the opposite so that way like the future events don't repeat themselves, then he said that there's one big change we can actually make besides you changing your shoes, which is we can have a change of leadership. And she wasn't feeling that. She was just like, oh, well, like, let's take a vote. And like nobody voted for her. Now, here's the part that got me, because everybody Vic wanted to be leader. He's a superhero. He's a former superhero. He knows how the superhero game works. Vic was the perfect choice to be leader. For some reason, they didn't vote for him. And the reason why they didn't vote for him was because he no longer has cyborg tech. And I don't understand what that has to do with him being the leader of the team. Just because he doesn't have his cyborg tech doesn't mean he can't lead the team. And again, he's the only one qualified who actually can lead the team. So that didn't make any sense to me, and I thought that was extremely weird. So then when they finally did vote, they were just like, well, who's going to be leader? Because, Cliff and Larry aren't qualified and Jane is crazy, blah, blah, blah. They done voted for Madame Rouge. And then Rita was immediately pissed. Rita was it wasn't even just first of all, she was salty because they didn't want her to be leader anymore. And according to her, being leader gave her a purpose. But then it was like the extra salt on the wound when they wanted Madame Rouge to be leader and not her. Even Victor wasn't even on board with that because he was just like, look, I was a superhero. I fought with the Justice League. I can do this. Why aren't we choosing me to be leader? And then I believe it was Cliff. That's when Cliff said, he was just like, the difference between Victor and Madame Rouge is he said that Vic was the truth and justice and blah, blah, blah. He said that we're dealing with a zombie butt apocalypse here and motherfuckers need to die. So he said that Madame Rouge, the problem is because even Rita said, she was like, oh, she failed as a hero and as a villain. But the thing is, because Madame Rouge is vicious and because Madame Rouge was a villain and because she did betray her own family, she betrayed her people and she turned her back on everybody that she loved and cared about, she's the perfect person to lead the team against specifically the zombie butt apocalypse because she has no fear, she has no remorse, she'll make the cutthroat decisions that nobody else can make. So then Rita got salty as hell and she's just like, well, fine. If she's like, I refuse to be a part of this, and then she just walked out of the room. And then because the thing is with Rita, because Rita not off to a good start this season, because it's like, now is this about saving the world or is this about indulging your own personal ego and your narcissism? So she got mad, she walked away. So then Madame Rouge tells everybody, she's just like, well, we're going to get ready. Everybody take an hour to prepare and then we'll go and we'll kill the zombies. Because what they found out was, because they were trying to find the zombie butts before it's too late. And I did say this in the last episode, because there was that episode where they did kill those zombie butts in the barn, that whole zombie barn thing. The guy who was actually a zombie, he survived that, and they found that he was still living on his farm. And they figured, since he's the zombie, he has to be the one that infects the butts, which turns the butts into zombies and then drives the world crazy. Madame Rouge had said, she was like, well, we're going to go to his farm and we're going to kill his ass. So then she told everybody, she was like, be back. She said, go upstairs, get your rest, get your mind together, and then let's come back refreshed, come back in an hour, and then we'll go up to the farm farm, we'll kill this son of a bitch, and we'll save the world. Once everybody walked away and did their own thing, she told Cliff, she was like, all right, fuck them. She said, me and you, we gonna go to the barn right now, and we gonna handle this. And then he was just like, wait, are we doing a secret mission? Are we going behind the team's back? And she was like, well, that's why you picked me to be leader, to make the tough calls. This is what the tough calls look like. So they dipped, and they left the whole team behind, so they can go kill the zombie. When they left the team behind, they found the dude on his farm. He's still a zombie, and he's still farming and creating crops and making crops, like on his farm. And then Cliff and, Madame Rouge, they approached him. Cliff can still understand zombie speak, so I guess it's like residual effects from when he was a zombie. And then the guy was just like, when the zombie guy saw him, they were just like, he was like, oh, thank God. He said, I knew this day would come, and I've been waiting for somebody to put me out of my misery, because he said, I understand. And he said that's why I've been on the farm. He said, I've isolated myself on this farm because I didn't want to hurt humanity anymore, and I didn't want to kill anybody. And he said that, but the fact that you're here to put me out of my misery, it's the right thing to do. And then he got on his knees, and he was like, take my life, Cliff Stone, and save the world. And then Cliff was like, no, because Cliff's whole thing was, he was going down there with like the venom in his soul, thinking that he was going to like save the world and cut off like he thought he was. It's almost like when somebody sends you to war to take down like an evil tyrant that's like terrorizing, like a country. And then when you bust in his room and you finally get to take down this tyrant once and for all, you find out it's like a 10-year-old kid. So Cliff didn't have like the stones at that point. Like he couldn't do it. So then, but both of them went in there wearing hats, because when you wear a hat, then the zombies can't smell your brains. So then Madame Rouge took Cliff's hat off, and it forced the zombie to attack Cliff, and then Cliff had no choice but to crush his skull. Because Cliff got attacked, the glove that he keeps on his hand, because remember in the last episode, he wanted the first thing that he touched, or the first thing that he felt besides the glove, to be his grandson and his family. But because he got into a fight with the zombie, and because he crushed the zombie's skull, the glove came off, and he actually ended up crushing the guy's skull with his own bare hands, because then Cliff was just like, yo, what's that cold feeling? And he was like, holy shit, is that blood? And then now he's like, he was feeling some kind of way, because the first thing that he touched, the first thing that he felt was actually the cold blood of him like killing somebody. But you didn't really kill him because he's a zombie, so he was already dead. So then, and then even then, like Madame Rouge, she apologized. She was just like, she's like, I'm sorry that, that the glove came off. And then he was like, no, you were right to do that, because he said, I hesitated, and it's not about that. He was like, it's about saving the world. We saved the world, so let's go home. So the two of them dip, and they go back to the mansion. Cyborg had intercepted a transmission from the Bureau of Bureaucracy, and it turns out that somebody named the Butt Hunter was bringing the last remaining alien butt back to the Bureau of Bureaucracy or whatever. And then when Vic went to go tell everybody what happened, that's when he found out that Madame Rouge and Cliff had ditched them, and then they went off on their own mission. So then Vic got upset, and he was just like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go kill the butt, and then I'm going to stop the last infected butt, and then I'm going to save the world. And then he bumped into Jane, and then Jane was just like, oh, are you ditching us like they ditched us? And he was just like, well, come with me then. And I like the two of them together. Every time Victor and Jane get together, I actually do enjoy it. The only thing is, every time they get together, like, I feel like Jane always like grabs him by the nuts and tries to squeeze as hard as she can. Because the two of them even had a conversation where Vic was just talking about how like he just wanted to get the mission over with so he can try to like live his life and everything. And then Jane accused him of running away and being, like she's like, oh, because you're not Cyborg anymore, like you're pouting and blah, blah, blah. And then he was just like, well, at least I'm fighting for something. And then she was like, well, it's not my fault. You don't have anything to fight for. The two of them kind of like went back and forth, whatever. But eventually the Butt Hunter showed up, and then he ended up giving them the case that had the butt in it. It was like a frozen infected zombie butt. And according to him, it was the last butt on planet. He gave it to Victor, gave it to Jane, and they took it back to the mansion. Now, while Rita was at the mansion, like sulking and like huffing and puffing, Larry was trying to talk to the negative spirit. He was trying to talk to Keeg. And Keeg ended up like leaving Larry's body and filtered himself through the wiring in the house. And then while Larry was trying to find him, that's when Rita walked up to him, and then she was like, Judas, you turned your back against me. And then he was like, and then see, and I love Larry for this one, because she was just like, oh, you were supposed to have my back, and I thought we were friends, and blah, blah, blah. He was like, woman, first of all, last season, you went to the past, you lived an entire life with a whole bunch of new people, you came back to the present, looked me dead in the face, and called me a stranger. Fuck you. Like he said, even to this day, you still look at me and treat me like a stranger. And this whole thing about you being the leader was just to like, bake your own ego. And it had nothing to do with actually like saving the world. He was just like, I'm trying to like, make things right with Keeg. I saw the future, and the future with me and Keeg, it's not good. Like I don't have a bond with the negative spirit in the future. And if I got to give Madame Rouge like the leadership of the Doom Patrol in order for me to have the future I deserve, then goddamn it, that's what I'm going to do. And then she was like, well, at least you have a purpose. I don't don't have a purpose. And then she got mad. She walked away. Like Rita's testing me. He said, yeah, like Rita's really testing me. So then while the two of them were sulking, they were both in the kitchen sulking. And that's when Madame Rouge and then Cliff came back. And they're just like, oh, we killed the last zombie. We saved the world, everybody, blah, blah, blah. And then Vic and Jane came in. They was like, not yet, because we got the last infected zombie butt. So now we saved the world. And then Madame Rouge was like, look, she's like, I ain't bickering over who gets the credit for this shit. She was like, we killed the zombie. Cliff just ripped the butt in two, and let's move on. Let's go on about our business. And then for some reason, everybody walked away. This is an infected alien zombie butt. You're leaving it on the kitchen table for Cliff to destroy, rip in half, kill, or whatever. And nobody's going to stand there and watch him do this. They're just going to walk away and just assume he took care of business. So I'm just like, did the zombie apocalypse happen just due to sheer negligence? Like, why is no one watching this? When Cliff tried to open the case, and then he saw the zombie butt, then he started remembering the feeling of what it felt like to touch cold blood, and then he started feeling some kind of way. He started shaking because he was just like, the first thing he touched in over 40 years was the feeling of him killing something, taking life. And then he just left the butt on the table, and he closed the lid, and he was just like, yeah, I just need a minute, because he was really like visibly like shaken up over it. And then Madame Rouge was actually sitting on top of the stairs, and she watched the whole thing, and she heard the whole thing, and now she kind of feels bad because she sent him out there to do that. And then and even then she was having like some PTSD too, because when Cliff had killed the zombie, she was getting flat, and then like the blood from the zombie had splashed on her face. She was getting like back feelings from when she betrayed all of her friends, and she was like, like weapon. So she's trying to atone for some of the wrong that she did too. But the problem is she's atoning for that wrong by manipulating and hurting more people. So now she's kind of like in a struggle himself. Cliff is struggling because I said the first thing he ever touched was him taking a life. So now like he's all in flux. Larry's in flux because him and the negative spirit aren't getting along. Like Rita mad because she ain't the leader no more, and now she doesn't have a purpose. And then like her leadership was given to Madame Rouge. And then even Jane, because in the last episode Jane was trying to go back when she decided that she was going to be the primary again. Kay, the girl, showed up, and then she was like, don't try to find me, and then she like ran away. And and then now like Jane's trying to figure out like what the hell's going on. And then that's when Cyborg had told her, when they were in the park together waiting for the butt hunter, that Cyborg said, he was like, last season Kay actually spent some time with us and she met all of us. She asked me to record her and interview her the same way that Niles used to do. So there actually is an interview with her telling me through the camera what she actually wants in life and what she wants to do. And then Jane was just like, well, I want to see that footage immediately. So she goes down, like Cyborg gives her the footage. She watches the footage, and then come to find out what Kay actually wants. Kay's at the point where she's just like, listen, when I was a kid, the underground, like the girls, they protected me. They were here to like save me. Like it was all about protecting the girl. But she was like, I don't need protecting anymore. I went topside. I proved I can take care of myself on my own. And I don't want their lives to just be about saving mine for the rest of their lives, because if they spend their lives trying to save mine, they're going to miss out on their own lives. They need a purpose for themselves. And I think she sent the other personas away, Kay did, to try to find a purpose of their own. And Jane's the only one left who still hasn't found purpose, because because Jane even said, she was like, if I'm not protecting you, what the fuck is my purpose? So like Jane legitimately doesn't know what she's supposed to do with her life now. But that's something that she got to figure out, and we'll see how that story progresses as we move forward. Cyborg ended up texting back one of his boys from high school, and then he decided he's going to go hang out now and like live a life and drink and have sex with random women and do all the booyah and do all this other stuff. But there's still something unsettling too, because and Jane even said, because she was just like, if you're trying to move on, why was being leader so important to you? Like, why did it bother you so much? So he's still struggling with whether or not he wants to be a hero or he wants to be like a regular normal dude. So we'll see how that story unfolds as well. And then finally, we got the backstory of the butt, so to speak, because it took us through like different points through history, like 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, where the butts were first introduced to the Bureau of Bureaucracy, whatever. And then it showed how like they were violent at first, they were vicious at first. And then the Bureau brought a doctor in that ended up teaching them how to sing and how to dance and how to be gentle creatures and how to not be violent and how to be more tame. And then once she found out a way to tame them, the Bureau was just like, great, now they're going to be the perfect weapons for us. And then like the doctor was upset because she was like, oh, these things can really thrive survive in humanity. And they were like, no, we're the government. They're going to be weapons, and we're going to take them as weapons. And then we fast forward to 2019, which was the scene where the Doom Patrol was actually in the Bureau and they released all the butts and the butts were running wild. You saw the same doctor in a room with headphones on behind a locked door, and she missed the entire raid on the Bureau. Like when the butts took over, she was the only person that wasn't aware that it happened. There was even a scene of like Cliff running in, like killing butts and stepping on faces or whatever. But then after the whole thing was over and all the butts were gone, she came out of the room and she was like, oh my God, what happened? And then he was just like, oh, the exterminators are going to be here to sanitize the place and get rid of all these butts. So he was just like, the butts went crazy. Get yourself out of here as quickly as possible. And then there was one butt particular. I actually can't believe I'm really saying those. There was one butt particular that she named Nicholas that was hiding in a closet, and she found him, and then she took that butt home with him, and that butt has been with her for the last 3 years in her apartment singing and dancing. That was how the episode ended, and thank you for tuning in. So we find out that the zombie butt apocalypse, it did not happen because of the last zombie on Earth. It did not happen because of the one infected butt zombie on Earth. It obviously happens because this dumb doctor ended up taking one of these random aliens. Like this isn't American Dad. You know what I'm saying? Like you just can't be housing aliens like in your house. So she has one. She has the last remaining live butt on the planet. It's not a zombie yet. So maybe it becomes a zombie because Cliff got zombie blood all over his body because he killed that dude and there's blood all over his body. But we'll see what happens, because the whole thing now is clearly that's how the apocalypse starts, because of the butt that this random doctor like kept as a pet. But the question is now is like, how does it get infected? How does it become a zombie? And where does like Willoughby come in? Because there's supposed to be some other entity that's supposed to be taking over. Share your questions and comments and concerns, and we'll continue to talk about it. Check me out on Twitter and or Instagram, always on YouTube, where you can share your questions, comments, and or concerns. What do you think of Doom Patrol so far, now that we got the first 2 episodes out of the way, as we continue to review episode by episode by episode and we move forward? I still got Warrior Nun on the channel, closing up the Warrior Nun. We got Stargirl series finale on the channel as well. And dear God, at the end of January, we're going to get back those Titans. So that was it, everybody. So thanks for tuning in. Watch your ass, because until next time, we're out this bitch.